Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel 42 The Journey. This is a continuation of the very first video where we actually introduced command line and we talked about some very important commands such as ls, cd, pwd. We also talked about relative and absolute paths. Well, in this video, we're going to delve deeper into some of these commands. We're going to learn how to use the manual. We're going to see how we can actually explore the terminal or our computer using the terminal. And finally, we're going to create a playground where we can use these new commands, which we're going to learn today, to create files and directories, manipulate files within the directories, as well as delete files and directories. So it's going to be an exciting time, lots of hands-on, lots of concepts to learn, but hopefully you're going to have so much fun doing this. So let's dive in. Well, if you're using a Mac OS like the previous time, the first thing you want to do is to click on the search icon, which brings out the Spotlight search text box, and there we can type in terminal. Okay, so we have it here, and then literally we can open the terminal. I'm just going to expand this a little bit so that we can have enough visibility and everyone can see. So again, remember, this is our terminal or the black box, and today we're going to look at some basic ideas of the command line that enable us to actually explore our computers using simple commands. To start with, we're going to use a command that is very popular used in the command line, and this is the ls. But what really is the ls command? Well, I'll give you a very important command that usually you should have at the back of your hands. When you're not sure about what a command is or what it does, the first thing you want to do is you want to check if that command has a manual or a description. And how can you do that? You can use the man and then the name of the command. In this case, let's look up ls. And when we do this, we actually get the manual, which you can see the general command manual for the command ls, which basically tells us that this command lists directory contents. Just below these are several options which you can pass in addition to the command, and these options then alter the original behavior of your command. We'll see how that happens in a few minutes. These options can be used for very important things. Take for example, one of the most common options used in addition to ls is -a, or the a options, which basically creates or shows directories that begins with a dot, and these are often hidden directories or hidden files. These are very important options. Of course, you can use as many options as possible when you're using your command. So without more ado, let's try to actually do something with our new command or with our command ls in addition to options. So we can create our manual, and first of all, let's find out where we are. We can do pwd and we find out that we are currently in the home directory. Let's move to our desktop. Okay, and in this case we're now in the desktop. So remember, cd is to change directory, and then we can use the tabs where we've written some of the and when we have an idea of what we want to do, where the directory we want to go to, we can use the tabs to autocomplete our path name. And so right now, if we do pwd, we find out that we're actually in the desktop. So let's say we want to find out all the files that are present in our desktop. What do we do? Remember, the ls command is used for listing all files present in your current directory. So what we can do is we can just type ls, click enter, and here you get to see all the files present in my directory. But if we want to actually have these files listed in a long format, what we can simply do is to use the ls -l as an option, and then we click enter, and then we see the difference. So let's see the difference between this. So for this, we just have all the files that are present and just listed here. Okay, this is not a long file, this is just a list of all the files present in my directory in alphabetical order. This is a long format. And why is it a long format? It's a long format because it shows additional information that are not really visible when you see these files present in your directory. For example, it shows you the permission, it shows you the file type, which for example, this is a directory, these are the permissions, then it shows you some extended attributes, for example here. Then it also shows you number of hard links, it shows you the username, in this case Ochulo O, it shows you the group name, in which case that would be staff, it shows you the file size, in this case 192 bytes, it shows you timestamp, so this is basically when this file was created, and lastly it shows you the file name. So this is the long format that shows you additional information about a file. You can use it in addition to, for example, when you have a file and you want to, find out when did I create this file, or what permission does this have, why can't I edit this file? The long format is good for listing files and showing their additional attributes or information with regards to the file. However, what if you want to create or you want to find out what a file is, you don't really know what it is, you just see the file existing? Well, command line has a very important command called file that is used to show the type of file that the file is. What do I mean? Okay, I'm gonna use clear to literally clear up the command line so that I can have space to do this, and I'm gonna type in the command file. Now file literally shows you what type of file is and it prints it out as a display. So I'm gonna press tabs, and let's say I want to find out what the very first file is. I don't know what it is. It's my first time on command line. I want to know what it is, what this file is. So I'm going to just type in 42 Vienna and I'm going to click enter, and it tells you, oh, this is a directory. And now I know that is a directory. Of course I knew it was a directory, but file literally helps you to see what type of file it is. It works for all types of files. For example, if I was to do file and I want to see acceptance email, what is the acceptance email? I can then do the same thing and it tells me, oh bro, it's a PNG image data with certain attributes. This is what files do, formats. So literally file gives you information about the type of file that your file is. Make sense? Get it? Great. Additionally, if you're interested in seeing information about the file, say for example, now we know what file does, but we want to know what's within the file. Command line also has another command that can help you. In this case, it's not the file, but the less command. Now, the less command is used for showing you informations that are present within a file. Let's create a file first before we use a file. So let's say we want to create a file called touch coding.txt. And this file literally is a .txt file, so it's a text file, but we don't want to put anything inside. And we do this, so the touch is used for creating files. And now we had this in our desktop and we want to know what is inside. Remember, there's nothing inside, we just created the file. With less, we can actually see that there is nothing inside. So this is just the file name, you get? When we make our program, we'll get to see how powerful less can be, but just keep in mind that less is actually used to show the contents of a file. So we've talked about three important commands today that are very necessary to get into the mood of exploring your command line. The first is the man, which is used for showing the manual, and I gave an example with ls, but it can work with any command. As long as there's a manual for it, the command line will produce the manual for you. The second is ls, using options that can change the original output, which is called the standard output of the command ls. The third is the file, which is definitely used for finding out what type of file it is. If it's a PNG, text, JPEG, MOV file, whatever it is, it tells you the type of file it is. And the fourth thing we did is the less, which is used to show the contents of a file. So this is something that you can play around with, just to get your hands with it. Now we're going to go into manipulating files. However, before going into manipulating files, I want to introduce to you wildcards. Now, wildcards are really, really cool because they can help make your work so much easier. Now, we're currently in my directory, right? And if we do ls, we see again we have lots of files. So imagine if you had 10,000 files and you wanted some files of interest. How would you do it? Would you go through those 10,000 files? No, you would not, because it would take you time. So take for example, I had files of different files and formats, and I only wanted to see files of a particular kind or files that began with a particular name. How can I do that? Well, wildcards, which is a very broad topic, but we'll not go into it today, are necessary. They can help you to do that. And one wildcard that you really want to use very proper in your bash scripting or the command line is the asterisk key, which is given by this. This is a very powerful wildcard, and it does so much. Literally, it selects everything that matches a particular pattern if you give it a pattern, or it selects everything if you don't give it a pattern. So let's look at my file. So I have lots of screen recordings. Let's say I don't want to see anything but just moves or PNGs. How can I use ls to do that? Yes, you might be thinking in line with me that I could use the wildcard and just select only movies or PNGs. But how does that work? Well, what you can do is to use the ls and take, for example, you want to listen a long format, we can do -l, so the long format, and then we select all cards that end with, for example, MOV. And when we do that, literally you see that now we are listing from the directories literally only files that end with MOV. That's all we need. So from here, we have basically subtracted anything that doesn't end with an MOV. We'll tell the computer we don't need it, we only need files that end with MOV. And now we can see all those files here. So again, this is a very important command, and I'm introducing this wildcard to you because eventually as you go into your programming journey, you might find yourself using it most of the time. So having discussed wildcards, another thing that I would want to show you is basically how to make a directory. How can you make a directory? Well, to make a directory, you have to use the command mkdir, which is basically make directory command. So we are currently in our desktop, and now let's say we want to make our directory. Let's say we want to make, coding space. We can use mkdir, then coding space, and then we click enter. If you want to see the directory being present, we can do ls-l, and then we just literally find it. So basically it should be C coding space, where is it? There it is. So basically this is our directory we created, and we can see it there, right? So this is our new directory which we made. Again, sorry that my desktop is a bit full, but if you have a cleaner desktop, you'll be able to see some of these things clearer and without lots of data flying around and messing around. But it's also good that it's a bit dirty, because then you can actually see it there. Anyway, so this is just basically how you can make a directory. Let's say you want to copy from one thing to another. So now we've created coding space. Let's say you want to copy something. In command line, you have the cp, which is basically the copy command that is used to copy files from one directory to another. So the syntax is basically you have the copy, which is the command, and then what you want to copy, and then where you want to copy it to. So basically, let's say I want to copy I don't know, this outlier PNG all the way to my coding space. So I want to copy this file and I want to paste it here. I copy and paste. What do? I can do cp, and this is outlier PNG. So I'm basically copying this and I'm copying it to coding space, right? And then I click enter. Now if I was to change directory and I go to coding space, remember coding space didn't have anything within it, and I changed it. If I was to press ls, I'm going to see outlier. So literally I just copied from the desktop to coding space. So remember, the syntax is copy what you want to copy, where you want to copy it. Basically, that's what you need to know about copy so far. Of course, if you want to really know more about copy, you can do man cp and then it shows you much more things you can do with copy. But again, we're not going to dive into this because right now most of the times you don't really need these things. Maybe you want to copy things recursively, but going into that would take us quite a lot of time, and that we don't want to do right now. So basically, copy is used to move files from copy files from one directory to another. If you're going to copy several items, what you should remember, so you might be thinking about it, what if I want to copy several items instead of just one item? Always keep in mind that the last directory is going to be the final place where everything you're copying is going to be stored. So take for example, now on my coding space, I want to copy, I just want to copy these two txt files to my coding space. So what I can do also is I can do copy, I can do testing. Oh, sorry, I'm not in the right directory. So let's go back to the previous directory, and yes, so now I can do copy. I can do coding.txt. So that's the first file I'm copying, and then the second file I'm copying, and now I want to move them to coding space. So basically you see right now that I have copied the very first file here. Sorry about that. I have copied the very first file here. Okay, I'm copying the second file here, and because this is the last, everything from here is going to be moved into here. So if I was to click enter, and then again I do cd, I go to coding space, and then I press ls, let's do -L, you see now I've copied those two files to coding space. This is how you can copy not just one but several files to a new directory. It's very important that copy, you need to remind yourself that copy is used to move files or directories to a directory. It's not nice to copy files to files. It can be a problem. I wouldn't advise you to do it, but it's better to copy files and directories to a directory. So now we've talked about a lot of things, and I would say it's about time to build our playground. Our playground is going to be a combination of all the things we've talked about. So let's get ready to do that. So we're gonna clear our space, create a clear space so that you can see everything. And then we're gonna create a special playground. So right now, let's create our directory called a playground where we'll be moving things around. And now I can just press up, and then basically make the directory in the desktop. So now I can then cd into my playground. So if we do pwd, we find out that we're currently in my playground. So the first thing we want to do is within our playground, we want to make two directories. So basically we want to make old space and new space. So I'm going to make two directory called let's make directory, and I'm going to make old space, and then I'm going to make another directory, and I'm going to call it new space. Great. So now if we press ls, we see that we have two directories. If we say file and we do old space, it tells us it's a directory. Again, nothing so complicated at the moment. We're just making files and directories. Now I'm going to have some commands, and of course I have not introduced these commands to you, so it might be a bit of what's going on here, but don't be stressed. It's very straightforward, and I'll talk about these commands. So the first thing I would want to do is I want to create some files in our old space. So basically I'm going to change my current directory to the old space. All right, so I'm currently in our old space, and I'm gonna make some things there. So I'm gonna make a file called, I'm gonna make several files. So for example, I'm gonna make a file called using movie names. Joker. Okay, I love the Joker. I am gonna chain it. So basically I'm going to make all these files at once. LOTRO, which is basically Lord of the Rings. Star Wars. A hi to my Star Wars fans. And Gladiator. Great. So basically I'm making 4 different files. The first file will be Joker, the second file will be LOTRO, the third file will be Star Wars, and the fourth file will be Gladiator. And now let's click on enter, and then if we press LS, we see we've made these 4 files, right? The next thing I would want to do is I want to write things into these files, and echo is a very nice command. We can look at man echo. It's a very nice command for writing things, arguments to the standard output. It's also used for writing text files into a file. So echo is a very well-known command on command line. So I'm going to be using the echo command, and then I'm going to be writing some very important phrases that were well known in these movies. For example, for Joker, I can say, "Why so serious?" I don't know how to spell serious again. S-A-R-I-O-U-S. And it's very important you put the quotation marks, because then it tells and the command line that what you're seeing right now is a string text that you want to write into something. And then you're going to use the operator sign that tells you that this output, you want to store it or you want to send it to a file. And in this case, we're sending it to Joker. All right. Yeah, I know you're screaming right now that why am I sending echo? Why am I sending the text "I'll be back" to Gladiator? Yeah, it's just like the Gladiator Terminator. Get that? Yeah. All right, super. So basically I've written 4 text string objects and I've passed them, or I've sent them as files or as data to this object. How am I gonna, if I wanted, how would I be sure that actually this is real? Like this Joker Gladiator files actually have these objects. Again, now we would see the power of less, and I can go on Joker, and again you see the output here. Why so serious? So literally it tells me that my Joker has this character in them. If I was to check also for less TRO, yep, again you see the characters or the text present in this file. So again, this, now you get to see how important less can be. So again, we can do ls minus l a h, and then we see all the files that we have right now: Gladiator, Joker, LOTR, and Star Wars. Right now, while we're here, let's say we want to copy all the files from our old space to our new space. How would we do that? So basically what we can do is we can copy literally everything here, and then we can move it all the way back to the dots. New space. And what did I do right now? So let's look at this command before I run it. I said currently I'm in old space, copy everything, and then paste it in the new space. And if we do this, we go to cd, we go to the new space directory, and we then press ls minus la h. Boom. Remember, we created everything in the old space. We are currently in the new space, but we've copied everything from the old space to the new space. This is just a simple example of how powerful you can use the copy to move things from one place to another using the wildcards. What about if we had an issue with our name? Or maybe we should just rename Gladiator to become Terminator. How can we do this? Well, I did not introduce to you one command, but this will be the last command that I would introduce to you, and that is the mv. And the mv is actually used to move as well as to rename files. So if we do man mv, you can actually see again the very short and brief manual for mv. You can read it at your own leisure time, which we won't go into that. And in this case, let's say we now want to fix Gladiator. What are we moving, or what are we renaming? We're moving Gladiator and we're changing it in the same place to Terminator, and we click on enter. Now if we do ls, we see we no longer have Gladiator, now we have Terminator. And if we do ls on Terminator, we find out that finally the Terminator says I will be back. So literally, we've seen how you can actually move things, we've seen how you can actually change things, we've seen how you can actually create objects, we've seen how you can actually write strings to an object, to a file, we've seen how we can make multiple files, we've seen how we can create directories. One thing I want you to remember is the fact that you can manipulate files so much within the command line. The last part, I would say the really last command I would want to show you would be the rom command. And the rom command I kept it for the last because it's a very powerful command, and that command can literally mess up your system. I would say use it with care. Don't use the rom command, because the rom command sometimes doesn't ask you for anything. It just removes things. It doesn't ask you if you're sure. So basically, if you use the rom command without you being sure, you could remove very important configuration files, and that could crash your system. So I would say, before you remove things, be sure they are what you really want to remove. Use rom less and less. Unless you're very sure you want to remove them. If not, do not use rom as much as use the other commands. However, I will still show you how to use the rom. So we are currently here, and remember, you can do the man rom to basically show you how to remove or link files and directories. You can go through the manual to read about it, to learn more. So let's go back again to our new space. So let's say we're done with this and we really want to remove our files. What can we do? Well, we can remove files individually, or we can remove directories. Now, if you want to remove a file, you can use rom, and then literally who's going first. Let's say we remove, it's hard to check, let's remove the Terminator first. We remove Terminator, right? And we click. So basically we've removed Terminator. How do we know? If we were to do ls -l, do you think Terminator will show? I guess you think not, because we removed it. So now you see there will be 3 files. So now we have just the Joker, LOTR, and Star Wars. And this is what rom does. It removes files. However, rom cannot just be used to remove files. It can be used to remove directories at the same time. This is also different from RMDIR, which is remove directory. And how can we do that? So let's say we're done with our old space and we want to remove the directory. We can go to the root directory where the old space exists, which is this. So if we were to press ls, now we see we have new space and old space. And let's say we want to remove old space. What we can do is to use rom and then -r and then the file. However, what happens if we try to do this without the old space, without this arrow option, which means to recursively remove files and directories? If we were to do it without the rom, if we were to remove without the arrow option and we click enter, it screams that, bro, you can't remove a directory because it's not a file. And so it tells you that this is a directory. you can't remove it. So it's screaming at you that you can't remove the directory. However, if you were to use arrow M minus arrow and then the same thing, again, it doesn't warn you, it just removes it. It didn't tell you that this is a directory or anything, it just forcefully removes it. And if we were to tap ls, you would see that it's no longer there, so it's gone. Another way to remove things is to use the arrow mdi arrow, which is basically, intuitively tells you it's to remove a directory. So guys, today we have really gone a bit deeper into working with shell and exploring the command line. We've seen how to review, as a way of review, we've seen how to remove directories, we've seen how to remove files, we've seen how to make directories, we've seen how to change into directories, we've seen how to use the manual, we've seen how to use options in addition to commands to make them more to give them more functionality and to modify the output, which would have been different if we didn't add the options. And we've actually played around with wildcards, to select specific groups of files or files with certain type or file type and stuff like that. So this will, I would say, conclude the very first part of our command line, which is basically going to be welcoming you into the shell. So literally learning into the basics of navigating shell as a whole. In our next video, we're basically going to be working on way much more cooler stuff. We'll be working on commands that helps us to redirect operations within the command line. We're going to work on creating aliases, and in the future we're going to do much more. For example, editing permissions, ensuring that, for example, only you can edit the file, no one else can edit the file, or changing the file size and stuff like that. So again, I hope you found this video very helpful. If you did find the video very helpful, please click like and share with the others, and continue in your journey to become a good software developer. And over the course of time, you would find yourself getting better and better every day. So I would say keep coding, enjoy the little wins, practice, and don't forget to show up for the next lesson. It's all about consistency. So see you when next, and have a very good evening. Bye.